Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Sales. You know what? Last name? Kvarfordt, Kvarfordt, Kvarfordt,
Will you please keep this in?
Kvarfordt.
I love it.
Yeah,
It's
Coach K.
That's
There
why
you
it's
are.
Coach K. This is why it's Coach K.
Yeah,
It's Ford, like a Ford car Ford. Nice and easy.
Kvarfordt,
Yep,
Kvarfordt.
car Ford.
Man, that's deceptively simple. I love
It
it.
is.
And by the way,
Converts its
Coach.
to
Yeah, the AI is deceptively simple, right? Or you're making
Yep.
it so for all of us.
Oh
So
yeah.
in the house, Coach Kvarfordt, as I have been educated, who is not only the founder and lead instructor of GTM AI Academy, he is also leading the charge over at Symmetric as the head of GTM revenue enablement and product marketing. And boy, he's just got a long list. Everyone wants a little bit of part of Coach K. He's over at GTM or at GTM Buddy, Simbi. I'm not sure if I'm saying that one right either.
You did that one right. That's good.
How about that? Momentum IO and Sales Assembly, Sales Velocity Labs, just a list of enablement related leading companies around the globe. And we're also, it's awesome to have him in the studio today. And what better person to talk sales enablement, past, present, and future than a man that's been in and around more than a couple of the societies. And maybe let's start there, Coach K.
Sure.
Give us that was kind of the commercial for the commercial
Commercial.
side of the house. Tell us
Yeah.
about some of the organizations you've been a part of, maybe, and how all of that has led to you being somewhat of an AI expert. I hesitate to use that word. I don't know that any of those really exist, but for enablement globally.
Yeah, you're kind of saying AI expert. I don't think I am either. I'm an AI um curious person. Like you, AI curious. I like to dabble and I like to experiment and I just love to play with it. So I'm an AI play person. That makes sense, hopefully.
Yes.
But to answer your question, some of the organization I've been a part of. So I was in sales for a long time. So I was a part of, I don't know how many different sales training I've been through stuff as a seller in official sales training for years before I ever got to enablement. And in my same time doing sales, I was a life coach. I went through a lot of life coaching certifications and did
Hmm.
things with like Jack Canfield and all the kind of personal development type of people. So I have that kind of background as a coach, going through their certifications and selling for them and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I've been doing training and enablement without knowing I was doing training and enablement for a long, long time. And then when I went to work for Franklin Covey, and I had a unique role there where I did both some of the delivery and also the selling for a Fortune 100 companies. Learned a lot from the team there because they have a really good machine. Learned a lot about presenting, learned a lot about enablement, thought leadership, content, like all the stuff you have from Covey. And I love their principles and stuff. And so from there, I've been leading some sort of enablement function since 10 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
So, Coach K, let's dive
Yes.
right in with question number one.
Sure.
When did you first hear the words sales enablement, and what did and what do they currently mean to you?
Okay. First time I heard sales enablement, 7, 8 years ago, probably something like that. My role at the time was actually a training title role where I was doing training and content was the official title. So all I did was the content. We did a lot of scripts at that particular role. So I wrote all the sales scripts for that sales team. And I did all the battle cards and competitive research and FAQs and all the basic stuff you need to have at your fingertips as a salesperson. I just made it based off what they need. I said, "What do you need when you're selling?" And I partly knew it because I sold there before, so I knew already what they needed because I needed it. And then I did the training for it because the reason why they let me be the trainer is because I had one, the coaching background, and two, because I was in the top 3 people of the team selling. So like, hey, you come train? I'm like, great, let's do it. So that's why I kind of went into that world. Um, and that when I first heard it was 2 years later, I was like, enablement, what is this? What is enablement? And then when I heard about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that. It just wasn't called enablement. And then what it means to me now, like I think it more broadly now. So like I know it began as sales enablement, but I think about enablement, period. So no sales, no nothing before it. It's just enablement. And what does that look like? Is a much different thing now than it was back then. Because then it was just like, what does the sales team need with what they have going on? What's the resources, content, knowledge, skills, support systems, whatever they need to get to win. And now it's turned more into enabling the entire ecosystem, including the buyers, of how to have the process be as fluid, streamlined, and as easy as possible, which is not an easy thing to do. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I'm even thinking larger. We were talking about this before the podcast, is that it's not just sales enablement, it's not just revenue enablement, it's not just AI enablement, it's entire organization enablement. And what does that look
Mm.
like? Because right now, in my opinion, based on my own experience and just seeing what else is out there, you have functions like HR, L&D, enablement, whatever, that all have similar parallel type of missions or jobs, but no one's ever aligned all of them for the entire organization. As far as I've never experienced it, and I've worked with humongous Fortune 100 companies all the way down to startups. I've never seen an organization that had a centralized performance improvement, change management strategy. No one. They've always had it by department or by function or by time, but nothing by the entire org, which I think would be effective because I'm an enabler nerd. So of course I build it
Right.
that way. But
Hey,
yeah,
I'm in your camp, my friend. And
yeah,
so it sounds like you found this enablement. What were the authorities? Who were the people? Where does the Sales Enablement Society fit into that 8 years ago when you went, oh, it's a thing?
yeah. Funny enough, I actually didn't know about the society. Like I didn't Google anything. I just heard about it from a friend who talked about it. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I started to, back then I was really in my world of like just humming down and trying to get my own stuff done. Like honestly, I was just kind of focused on where I was at with my personal life and other stuff. So I wasn't really involved in the community at all. I was just like trying to survive in my day-to-day stuff. So I didn't do a whole lot. It wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago where I started to really dive in and I was like, okay, I want to learn more. I want to get better at this. And so I went to the Sales Enablement Collective. I went to Enablement Pro, went to ATD, went to the Sales Enablement Society, went to the squad wasn't a thing back then, but when the squad launched, I was one of the first 50 people in the squad. So like all those things, I just jumped head first. And I was like, I want to learn as much as I can about what this enablement thing is, and see what people are talking about. And so then I connected with different people like Roderick, um, follow people like Mike Kunkel, Siobhan Thatcher, like Paul Butterfield, all these guys that guys and girls who are just like the OGs of the thing, Corey Bray, all these guys who've been doing this for a long, long, long time. And the other people I started to follow were just sales leaders like Chris Orlob, who are just sales leaders, but now they're doing enablement and just following their content, as they start to grow, which he obviously he wasn't doing that 5 years ago. He's been more recent. But anytime anybody like that would start popping up and talking more training, I didn't care where they came from. I wanted to pay attention to it. So I'm kind of a weird nerd where I don't care if someone's been in sales or not to be an enablement because I've had some of my best enablement training has come from people who've never sold before in their lives because it wasn't about sales, it was about enablement specifically, the theory and philosophy behind it.
But you've become involved in the local chapter there in Salt Lake City, though, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Jesse Potter's the lead here in Utah chapter. And I've done one thing last month. We're doing another one in a couple weeks, which will be fun. So yeah.
Part of the reason I land back in the Sales Enablement Society is that's a big part of the podcast, right? The
Yeah.
founding positions of the Sales Enablement Society are a big part of Orchestrate Sales, and specifically what we're delving into more deeply in season 3, the past, present, and future. We start founded in the past, and the 3 positions. Do any of those resonate with you in back then and or in current day?
It's interesting because these founding positions were actually something I didn't know about until the last year and a half, 2 years. Like I never knew them, even though I was a member of the Sales Enablement Society for years before that. I never knew the founding position. I just thought it was a community you got together to understand these things. So it was never communicated to me until I connected with Scott Santucci, and Siobhan and all these other people. I'm like, this was a thing. Why are we not talking about this?
Right.
Yeah. So it's just,
Amen. That's what we're doing here, Coach K.
yeah, kind of blown away by it because again, back then, the original sales enablement was just about what can you do to help support the sales team be better. It was looked at as a reactionary supportive function. And then when I heard what they were talking about, that was like, this is what I've been looking for this entire time, because I always thought, I was like, why is this not more part of the conversation from leadership? Why are we only looked at as the person in the corner firefighting with whenever you ask us to do stuff? I don't understand the disconnect, And then, talking to Scott and Siobhan and all these other people who are the OGs of the Sales Enablement Society, I was just like, they get it. Why are we not getting this? What's the deal? I mean, when they did this was what, 8, 9, 10 years ago, whenever it was? And
2016.
2016, 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago. So if that's when it started, we're 8 years later. I don't see us very close. In fact, I see us farther away from that, if anything. And I don't know. I don't have the answer why. I mean, we've talked about doing the research group. We can talk about that in a second. I want to figure out
Right.
why. But I just always wonder, like, well, how did we get here? And if we keep doing what we're doing, the direction we're going is not a good direction, which I'm bound and determined to do everything I can to change that, because I am not okay with where we're going, and you can see that with
Yeah.
all these layoffs. I heard about someone last night who was a leader in the enablement community, who was a pillar, who was a rock star, got laid off. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yep.
It means that it's not just the enablement community itself that has the issue. It's outside of the enablement community, CROs, CSLs, whoever else making the decisions. There's two sides. The one side is the C-suite make a decision around enablement doesn't truly know the function, responsibility, power of what enablement can and should be, because they only view it as a firefighting kid in the corner, fix my problem person. And the enablement community themselves has to reframe what they think enablement is. It's not just a request form that they put in to trainings on whatever someone wants to have done. It's a strategic function. So my opinion is, pretty much all the communities we've been a part of, and I've been involved now very deeply for 4 or 5 years, almost everyone is reactionary. There's not a lot of people saying, where are we going? Let's move this forward, or let's lead this. And that's what I think the conversation we need to be having is not just focusing where we are or where we've been, but it's like, where do we want to go and how do we actually move towards that?
Yeah.
So
Position 2, truly being chartered as a business within a business, a strategic charter, not just in case of emergency break enablement glass, right? So
yeah,
let's maybe shift into the present and talk a little bit about that, Jonathan. What do you have up your sleeve regarding the potential to maybe get some opinions and see if we can start to track that needle moving? Hey,
yeah.
8 years later, we still got the present. 8 years from now, where do you want to be and how are we going to get there? And how are we going to watch that dial move on the dashboard?
I'm going to answer a question before that you didn't ask, actually, but I'm going to give my opinion on it. I
Fire.
think that charters, the original mission statement or the original purpose of a charter, I think was good. I think what charters have turned into are a piece of crap, in my opinion. Very strong opinion of mine. And almost people are going to say, what are you talking about? It should be closer to be looking like a business plan than it should be the current charter of the day. Because I've seen a lot of charters. And I'm like, what is this? And what other organization in the GTM function has a charter? Zero. The only people who do have something is an actual business plan for marketing, RevOps, whatever the case might be. It's not a charter. It's totally different, And this is coming from my MBA side of seeing how other orgs work and how they set up their function. I'm just like, I don't get this charter thing. I get it from the original lens, but I don't get it from the current standing. Does that make sense? So I just want to make sure I threw my 2 cents. It's going to be a hot topic, probably going to get reamed for it, but I just think how we're doing charters now is not effective personally, because again, we're in this place where the entire enablement function is looked at as reactionary versus a strategic business driver of what should be happening. So I just want to make sure I can put that out there.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, and here's my caveat to that. To me, the word charter is we need to have a stake in the ground, because the rest of that is to run as a business within a business, chartered as a business. So it is a business plan, in my opinion. But to your point, that's not what it became. It became, in a lot of places, more of a picture to put on the wall that has an inspirational image than a business plan that truly, in order to have a business within a business, you've got to have stakeholders. In order to have stakeholders, you have to have a seat at the executive table, at least one, maybe CRO, maybe CMO, right?
Something,
maybe CSO. And that I think is what you're saying is business plan, meaning that you got to have the stakeholder. That's why it's business within a business. That's the click down that a lot of people overlooked that part of it and went just, oh, we need to just put together a charter. Does that resonate?
Yeah, and it's also like on top of that, it's like I want to know with any business plan, you have to know the costs, you have to know the profits, you have to know the results of it. You have to be aligned
Bullseye.
to the company. You have to be able to come back and say, here's my QBR and seeing how we're doing. Like right now, it's more about the QBR for most enablement people is here's the content we've produced this last month, or here's the number of trainings we've done, which I'm like,
Yeah.
great, but that's the tactic. That's not the strategic QBR review. It's not the same. So I think that's where we've gotten lost a little bit. And partly because there's two sides of it where part of it's because people just don't know any better. Like we've never been shown as enablement community what good looks like. All we're shown is opinions. And not that those opinions aren't what good looks like, but everyone argues over the opinions. So we don't have a standard of saying this, like you have a Harvard business degree, like that's the what good looks like for a business degree. We don't have that for enablement. We have opinions.
Yep.
So everyone's stuff is just like saying, I think this is good and I think this is good. And then as a result of that, sales leaders and revenue leaders are like, we don't know what's good either. So maybe you should go report to HR, go report to RevOps, go report to marketing, go report to whoever, because we don't know what to do with you, you know? So
So a minute ago, you mentioned that you kind of give us a teaser about this idea of
yeah,
potentially doing some outreach to global leaders to have a indication of what good looks like, and maybe with information is one thing, but having a central authority that gives it that stamp. Can you fill in the blank a little bit and give us a peek
yeah.
behind the curtain of what's going on in the mind of Coach K?
Well, first off, I'll say that I do not view myself, nor do I think that I'm anywhere close to the OGs or enablement gods out there. I'm not. I'm just someone who's very passionate about this. So I'm not the authority to even say this is what good looks like. I'm the person who is looking for it. I want to see
Right.
it. And if I'm not doing it, I want to do it. That's where I'm at. I don't maybe I am doing it, maybe I'm not, but I'm really passionate about understanding what is that and how can I communicate that to as many people as possible so that we don't have as many freaking enablement layoffs anymore because it's driving me crazy. So the um the goal right now is that I'm working with Vanessa Metcalf. She's a current VP of over at Showpad, but we've been friends for a while. And we've been talking about this concept around this whole topic and just saying like, why is it that, so we did, this is another long story, but I'll give you a short version. Vanessa, I've been talking about this problem. And on the side of that, Stephanie Boyer, who's a doctor over at Bryant University,
Of course.
she was asking me some enablement questions and we were talking about enablement in general. And she's like, have you ever done a research group? I'm like, no, I never have. Like, I'd love to. And I thought about it, I was like, RS doesn't do one, SEC doesn't do one, Squad doesn't do one. No one's doing research. Forrester does and Gartner does. But like the communities themselves don't do anything. So she's like, you want to do one? I'm like, sure. So we got together, like we had 80 responses in the survey in January of this year, 24. We had about 45 people show up live and we did a live research group study led by Stephanie. And she has, several academic studies on her belt. And so she kind of knows the process of what to do a study. So she led it. And we went through this really interesting process. And then her and I went through the data. And we found two patterns, one of which is sales enablement people or enable in general, whatever you want to call it. We don't agree on what we're responsible for, what we should be doing, who we should report to. And on the other side of it, the view is sales leaders or the people who are in charge of us, they don't know what we're supposed to be doing, who we're responsible to. We're supposed to all this stuff. It's the same thing. Like both sides have the same problem and no one has an answer. So what Vanessa I've been talking about is creating a non-community community, which means that it's not a Slack group, it's not a nonprofit, it's a core think tank of both people in and out of enablement that we're calling it RISE, which is research and insight based strategic enablement, which is all about using data. And the goal is to do two things. We're going to get as many voices as we can, both inside enablement and outside enablement, to answer these questions of like, what is enablement and who do they report to and what's their function? What's their responsibility? What does good look like? And answer those questions, not just from the echo chambers of just the sales leaders or just enablement, but from both of us. And then bringing that together to form some sort of academic study, working with 4 or 5 different university professors to give something, some power behind it, and working with any group I can to get as many voices as I can quarterly. So by the end of the year, we can publish our findings so far. I don't know if the study will be done by then, because sometimes, as I've learned, studies aren't a time-based thing. Sometimes it takes time to do a full in-depth study. It takes time. And so you can't say we're going to do the study in 6 months and be done. Like we'll do a study and show our findings, but that doesn't mean the study's done. So the goal right now, we just did our second live research group last week. And you were there, and the survey's out right now. It's going out to the Revenue Enablement Society and a few other groups to enablement, and then another secondary survey is going out to sales leaders to answer kind of the same questions, but from their perspective. And so we'll be taking this quarterly, and then when we get done, we'll be publishing. I don't know what form yet. Might be a white paper, might be some other form. We'll see how it works out, but we'll be doing some sort of initial findings publication, and the goal is, like, the goal is to try and figure out what does good look like and to raise the profile and influence of enablement. Now, the caveat to this, and what I committed to the academics, is that to have a true study, you have to be willing to look at bad news, which means that if we only look for the data that justifies why enablement exists, that's all the data I'm going to find. So I came into this saying, I may find data around enablement that's not good news.
Mhm.
But I need to know, we need to know where we are
Yes.
realistically, because if we don't know where we are, we're never going to change and be able to go where we need to go. So I'm coming at this saying, I want a really good, blunt feedback on where we're at. And that's okay, because then it's going to drive our decision. Say, okay, now how do we move forward? How do we go forward? Does that answer your question? Hopefully, is that clear?
It is, and excited for that. Maybe just a quick, and we can save this and you can sink it back in at the end. How do
Sure.
folks get involved? Like and follow Coach K on LinkedIn.
The way to get involved is just literally answering the survey. We're not using people's information except for the survey, and that's it. And then we're using it to let people know, like, if you want to come to a research group, you can come, but we're not doing events. We're not doing courses. We might co-sponsor events in the future with RES or ATD or someone. Like, we might be involved with it, but we are not going to be putting on the events, because the goal is not to compete with any community. It's to complement what's already happening. So we'll definitely be doing a lot, and I'll be publishing and I'll be pushing every event I can find, because I want people to know what's happening. Like, because I didn't have that when I first started. I didn't know about SEC and SES and all this stuff. I want to be a voice that says, here's 5 communities, go join all of them. And here's all the events. Here's what's going
Right.
on, because I don't want to be the filter of saying I'm egotistical enough to think that I'm the one who should tell you we should go do. I'm not. I'm going to say, here's all the resources, you go do it, and you tell me what you think is good. I'm just more concerned about bringing the communities together as a voice, and also giving voices from the outside, CROs and whoever else, to be the other side, so we're not just talking within ourselves, we actually get feedback from others.
This episode brought to you by GTM AI Academy. Learn AI from a globally trusted resource. Coach K, Jonathan Kvarfordt. Their bundle, Enablement AI Mastery, includes both the core Generative AI Foundations course and Enablement AI Mastery specifically. Each course has a value of $599 individually, but Coach K is offering them as a bundle with reduced pricing. And as a listener of the Inside Sales Enablement podcast, if you act now, you can use code ISE3 to get an additional 30% off of the entire thing. You will also receive free access to the GTM AI Tools demo library. Coach K has done the demos, so you don't have to, and offers his straight shooting opinion, fact-based through an enablement lens. Go to www.gtmaiacademy.com and enter code ISE30 today and elevate your AI enablement game.
So we've started. We're in the present and starting to put a big toe into the future. If there is a enablement futurist, I think I'm looking at him. I've had the opportunity to take a peek behind the curtain on GTM AI Academy, which is both for the entire GTM team as well as specifically at least the first couple modules that are being released, and the one that I'm having the opportunity to go through specific to enablement that's been built out, and enjoying the heck out of that already. Just a quick plug. I love your conversational, very relaxed approach to the whole thing. It's like you're hanging out with Coach K, and again, you're getting what good looks like. He's done so much work and put in so much personal time to these things. It's such a huge and such a ridiculously low bar for you to pay just a little bit to get in and kind of have a peek inside of his brain. So with that, maybe Coach K, give us a little bit of insight. What do you think about this? Have you heard AI or heard generative
Have I heard
AI
of AI?
specifically? Yeah.
A little bit. I've heard a little bit about it. Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like quick story with this, like I went through, long story short, a company I was with before was involved with the Silicon Valley Bank stuff and had, as a result, a lot of layoffs last year. And fast forward before that, I worked with a company who bought an AI tech and brought it onto their own technology. And so the AI person who developed their own model was the guy that I worked with very closely to learn about AI. It wasn't ChatGPT because it wasn't out yet, but I learned a lot about AI from him who built his own model. And then he was on some board or something around ChatGPT. He was on ChatGPT 2.0 before it was released to the public. And then when it released in 3.5 or 3.0, whatever it was, he told me about it. Goes, hey, check this out. This is awesome. And so I did. And back then in November, when it was released, I was doing, I'm a musician and songwriter. So I was doing songs about cats in space eating bananas or something, So like, it was just stuff like that. I was like, this is cool, kind of honky, but whatever. I didn't see the actual application of it until fast forward to when I was laid off we had a riff with everyone else. And so half the sales team left, half the leadership left, I left. And so had some time on my hands as I was looking for work. And I started diving in saying, I wonder what I could do with this, and just kind of dabbled into it. And then I was part of this mastermind group of consultants who were talking about AI specifically and how to apply it in consulting. And one of them talked up about one of the tech companies that I know with the enablement team. He said, hey, I know the CRO of this team. I think I'm going to go pitch him doing some AI training. And I'm like, really? Interesting. What are you going to do? And so he talked to me about it. It was more consulting. He wasn't going to be going in as AI enablement. He was just talking about consulting. And then when we got done with that call, I called up the VP because I know him. And I'm like, hey, are you doing the AI with ChatGPT? He's like, no. I'm like, you need to get on it right now because it's coming. And matter of fact, what happened was this guy did come and do consulting, and now this team is doing something with ChatGPT more officially. But that was back before anyone's really talking about it. But that's what turned me on to this. Of just that moment was where I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is where we're going." Is AI? Because I started thinking about seeing the application he was talking about, which wasn't even from a sales point of view. It was more he was going in for productivity. He wasn't even going in for sales help or CSM help or enablement help. He's just saying, here's how I use AI for being more productive in your day-to-day tasks,
Right.
But even that was like, bing, that's when I saw, I was like, okay, this is going to impact every role from CEO down to the front office manager. Everyone's going to be using AI on some level, and no one's talking about this. And then I started thinking about it going, okay, but at the core of it, AI is just a tool. And who's usually the team members who train and help people get mastery over tools? Enablement.
Right.
So I was like, okay, if this is where we're going, here's the two questions I had, which was, okay, if I can help enablement people and myself be the AI experts within their own organization, this question of is enablement valuable goes away because we become the AI user experience enabler experts. So then why would they get rid of someone who's like doubling their productivity across the revenue team, right? And then the other side of it is I started asking the question is, well, is the revenue or sales teams the only ones who need AI help? The answer is no. So then would I do anything different with an engineer or an accountant or a programming person or anybody else? The answer is no. I need to know their tasks, duties, or whatever. But if I know the AI foundations, which is built also upon enablement foundations, I can go into any team, anywhere, any skill from CEO down to anybody. I can build out an AI plan for anybody. And it's probably because of a mix of my passion for AI and because of my passion for enablement, because I understand how to get tools adopted and how to use it and how to get their workflows and how to do a gap analysis and change management and blah, 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 all this stuff that we all do. And so I see us somewhere, some way, whether it's enablement or not, whether it's sales enablement or not, someone will be in charge of the usage of AI across an org. Someone's going to have it.
Yeah.
And I know there's going to be someone before the end of this year. In fact, I found someone at Walmart who is the AI trainer for Walmart. I was like, dink, there it is. I found
All
it.
right. Starting.
So
Curious
it's
question.
Yeah.
Here's one of the things for me and maybe some of our listeners are having a similar pit in their stomach of anxiety.
Yeah.
Even when I say, oh, I'm about to invest, $500, $1,000 in some AI training to be that person. I'm already overwhelmed thinking, man, I just saw a post on LinkedIn. There's 532 billion AI apps already.
This time, yep.
Even if I pay for this thing, how on earth am I going to be able to consume the content in a way, learning about all these different applications? Because I'm thinking that that's what I'm seeing in all the headlines is this new thing, that new thing, and there's 50 of them that do this one thing. I'm already overwhelmed before I start the course, but right from the beginning, you cue it up in a very different way. And maybe you can help some of the me's out there who might be experiencing anxiety around AI share kind of your strategic approach to how to help folks consume this thing and get up to speed or even have a fighting shot at it.
Well, I'm curious. What did I say? Because I don't remember. I said that I recorded it a long time ago. What did I say?
Yeah. So in the lead in, it's like forget that there are a million different platforms out there. It's about the application. That strip out all the technology, right? And let's lead with what does this mean to me? How can I implement an AI strategy?
Yeah. Yeah. It is easy. So if anyone out there who's listening to this and is feeling overwhelmed, you should feel validated because it is even diving in and loving AI, it's overwhelming for me because I can't keep up. Like sometimes I'll hear about an update that was like from a week ago. I'm like, I never heard about this. And I'm usually plugged into all this stuff because there's so much stuff going on right now. So just know there's a lot. But for enablers specifically, there are very few tools that we can use that impacts almost everything we do. And in my opinion, Claude, Gemini, or ChatGPT, one of those three is one of those tools you should be using all the time. And if all you did was focus on just ChatGPT or just Gemini or just Claude, you would amplify your production by 20% easily, both from a generative, creative content output and then from a strategic level. Because that's how I look at AI. It's not just a one trick pony. It's a multi-trick circus where there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, but it's just pushing yourself to think differently around both enablement and AI. I had one of my students who came on and she just told me, she's like, I never thought about building a competency model with AI. I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's try it. And the only way I'm able to do some of this stuff is like when I ask the question, I wonder if I could do this with AI, and I'll try it and practice it. And so I built out this, like one of the prompts I made is just really cool. I don't know if I can swear, a kick A prompt that builds out a competency model for any role. And obviously the more detail you give it, like a job description, the better it is, but it is awesome. And I use it all the time now because I have to build competency models for my entire revenue team. And obviously I get that confirmed and validated from the leaders of the team to make sure that it's not off my rocker. But so far, every person I've sent the competency model to has tweaked maybe one or two competencies, maybe one or two positive indicators, and maybe one or two KPIs. But the 90% of it is like, this is great. And they think that I'm the expert. And I'll self-admittedly say, I guided an AI through this, but this is not me. You know, I know how to prompt it to get it. They're like, how? And everyone is used to the standard ChatGPT response, which is like a paragraph or two of whatever stuff. I'm getting these really super long, detailed responses because I know how to prompt it. I know how to talk to it, you know? So I think to answer your question of the people who are feeling overwhelmed, start with the foundational technology. And I know it gets talked about all the time, but even if all you did was just do with ChatGPT, it's well worth 20 to $30 a month to pay for. And you'll get way more out of it once you start to diving in and just ask the question, what if I could do this with this tool?
Yeah.
The other side of it too is from a mindset standpoint. I've heard some people say if you treat AI like an intern or other stuff, I don't agree with that. I think if you want AI to act as if it was an intern or an expert, you need to treat it and talk to it that way. If you want an intern level output, then talk to it like an intern. If you want an expert level output, then talk to it like an expert. But it's like you with enablement. If I came to you, Eric, you've been in this world for a long time. You know how to build like a charter, for example. If I came to you and I said, hey, make me an enablement charter, and that's all I told you, would you give me a really specific, super awesome charter, or would you give me kind of pretty much a broad one that could fit anybody?
Yeah, generic.
You give anybody, because I didn't give you enough information to let you be specific. But if I said, I'm a Series B startup with 50 people going to 100, I need to make sure I'm supporting this, this, and this team. We're in Latin America and APAC. I need this and this and this. Here's my KPIs. Here's my revenue. Here's my stuff. And I give you all the specifics. Then you'd be like, okay, now we're talking. And then a chart you would give me would be much more specific, much more customized as a human. But yet we, for some reason, think if all we say to a ChatGPT is make me a sales enablement charter, it'll magically pop up with this awesome thing. It just gives us broad. The more specific you can treat it, if you treat it like a consultant or a creative briefing or whatever you want to call it, and just saying, I need this 5 things in this format in this way, like you'll be surprised how good the output is when you're more specific and give it more context in what you're looking for. Because just like a human, it doesn't know what the heck you're thinking.
Yep.
AI is forcing me to become a better communicator as a human. And it's been interesting because I've noticed it in my train of thought, in my speaking with my family. I'm communicating better because I have to be more clear on my thoughts. Because if I don't, then it can't help me,
Yeah.
So
I'm in cahoots with you, but the little hashtag I picked up is AI curious human enthusiasts.
right.
And it's a little bit of everything you're talking about. I'll zoom it in a little bit more. The more this administrivia is taken off your plate and you are able to get an informed template, then you can make it your own. But if you leave that aside and let that productivity be left to somebody else, I would be concerned for my position because I'm not leveraging tools effectively. Is that part of what the GTM AI Academy was born out of? Maybe.
Yeah, well, there's a larger conversation happening, which I think is, again, going back to the core principles of what is enablement, like what is that actually? And the way we have connected ourselves to what enablement is now is, one, I don't think aligned to what enablement actually is, and 2, not what enablement can be. So an example would be sales coaching as an example, or even feedback. Let's just say feedback. Right now, for me to have all my Gong calls being reviewed, I have to hire how many humans to watch how many calls in 3 different languages to get good feedback on how someone's performing. Obviously, Gong has trackers and all this other stuff, but it's not giving feedback, But now, using an automation and AI tool like Momentum, I'm able to get feedback on every single call, on the stage, on the persona, on the exit criteria, on everything that I can't do otherwise. And then it gives me, not only does it give me that, but it'll trigger me, like me personally, and saying, Coach, the score was underneath this much. You need to go watch this particular timestamp. I can go into the call, watch a 5-minute section, get some feedback, go, ha, now we need to work on this competency, this skill, this whatever. So it makes me much more strategic and able to enable my team or give feedback using AI. Does that make sense? Where I couldn't do that before. But the question is I always have is like AI role plays is an example. We have the smattering of AI role plays we have out here. And the reason why is because most salespeople don't like role plays. I don't blame them. I'm not a fan of role plays either. I love practice. And if we can have a safe space where someone can practice in a real world environment that gives them ability to actually get better at the craft, then why would we not do that? Because a manager does not have time to do role plays all day long. They don't have time to do a role play with one of their sales team members every single day, let alone 8 to 10 members they're looking at and doing opportunity management, all the other stuff they're doing. Like if you get down to the nuts and bolts of day-to-day practice, they don't have the time to do that. And neither does enablement, because there's only 3 or 4 enablement people for every 500 freaking salespeople. So, keeping up with that, you have to use technology to do that, which means you have to think differently around how are you enabling the team and what does enablement actually look like, And I had this aha with enablement a few years ago that has to do with AI, actually, that when I learned that I am now the subject matter expert of knowing that I'm not the subject matter expert, I get out of the way and I'm more about facilitating the conversation. So now when I go into an organization to enable them, I'm looking for either experts outside of the organization, the top salespeople, the best product person. Like I source the information and make it available on time for people when and where they need it, whether that's in a CMS, whether that's in Salesforce, whether that's where they're accessing the information. I need to make it front and center so they get it at the right time, the right place, right way, from the right person with the right context, so they can do what they need to do, right? And AI is the perfect way to do that, because now I'm thinking, okay, if I'm facilitating performance improvement, change management, whatever, can AI help me with this? The answer is 100% yes. So that means I can think about AI differently. So it's not taking my job away. It's making my job as the facilitator of those enabling functions better. Does that make sense?
It does.
Now, if on the other side, if your entire enablement role is making decks, you will be eliminated in the next year.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, enablement is not making decks. That's a task. I heard this interview from Sam Altman about with Lex Friedman about losing jobs, and he said something which I love. He said we shouldn't be asking about the jobs the AI will be taking. We should be asking about what tasks will AI be taking. And if you look at your job from the stuff that you do that is not task oriented, but can be done by an AI, then why wouldn't you want to have that done? Because then you could do more of the more creative human activities versus the
Yeah.
task that should be and be automated anyways, you know?
Human
So
enthusiast right there. That's
that's
it.
right. I
What's
think,
your gifting? Lean into it. You can now shine even brighter. Let the administrivia go, right?
yeah. Yeah. I think that's the problem is a lot of, and I was in the same place. Like I connected my worth as an enablement person of what I could personally produce. And the more I got away from that and got into what, um, ecosystem, what can I do to create, what can I do to facilitate greatness inside of someone else through coaching, through feedback, through content, through whatever that might be, the better I am at enablement because it's no longer about me. I can get out of the way and I can look at a tool that says, okay, maybe I can have an AI do this part of it and see how accurate it is, make sure it's working and how does it impact performance. So just to me, this whole AI conversation enablement, that's why it goes so hand in hand for me because it's just it's an accelerant of what enablement should be, in my opinion.
I love it. Well, Coach K, I am so grateful for having you on the front lines of technology and the future through the lens of paying attention to the founding principles of the Sales Enablement Society. In the
Yeah.
pre-show, you and I were talking about how we're a few of the folks, and even during this episode, that are still paying attention to that. Would love to have you close this out. And first of all, before I do, everybody like, follow, click, ring the bell on LinkedIn. Not Jonathan is always publishing great content. Check out the GTM AI Academy. You enablement folks already have a couple modules available to you, courses, one in basic AI and one in enablement specifically. And Jonathan also sources all kinds of incredible content from around the global community and publishes it daily and even more than that. And just keeping up with him, you're going to
Every day.
really be on top of it. So coming full circle, what do you see, Jonathan, the potential to be for enablement to elevate through what you're doing with Rise? What's next for enablement? And if you were to like leave a parting shot for embedded in a little bit of everything we talked about, the founding positions, the opportunity that AI presents for enablement, and everything that you've got a front row seat to because you've invested so much time. What's that final inspirational, like, hey guys, and I'm putting some words in your mouth. I was trying not to, but we've got these roots. Back in 2016, there were these roots of these foundational principles that I, Coach K, am fighting for, along with a core group of people. And we have the biggest effing opportunity on the planet in AI. We had it with COVID. I'm really putting words in your mouth now. We kind of missed it. And now we've got this AI thing, and you're listening to the guy that's paying attention for you because I believe in you and I believe in this profession. Come alongside me and don't freaking miss it this time. Let's lift this thing globally.
Yeah, I guess the last thought I would say is even with the core foundation principles, I would ask, not that they're wrong, I'd ask, how can we evolve them? What's the next level? Because that's the question I'm asking about everything I'm doing in enablement. So just because I've done a charter, is that what I should do now? And we're talking about like maybe it's more of a business plan versus a charter. Like, am I willing to look at what I'm doing now and think, is there a better way to do this? Instead of going back and saying, what has someone else done? Not that that's bad. It's always good to start with where we've been. But I'm like, what's next? How can we do this better? So I guess the question would be are you willing to think enough differently to let go of what you've already have been doing for however many long or what everyone else has done to get to the next level? Because that's the only way we're going to get there is by willing to let go of what is to get to what's next. We're never going to get there unless we let go of where we're at. Yeah. So the question is, are you willing to evolve and to shift and change? Because if you're not, you're going to get left behind. And I don't personally want enablement to be left behind. I want us leading the charge.
They were never embraced anyway, but you're doing things to create an authority that can get it done.
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully. we'll see. Like I told you before, I'm not the enablement god board of whoever approving enablement stuff. I'm just someone who's extremely passionate about it, and I want to make sure I can unveil what good looks like for both myself and for others to see. That's my purpose.
I love it.
So long as we can find that, then I'm good. That's all I want.
Well, Coach K, thank you for being on the front lines of this thing globally, of technology,
course.
of just caring for this community, man. You are a bright, shining light, and really appreciate you taking some time out with me. And again, finally, everybody like, follow, subscribe, sign up for GTM AI Academy. Final word, Coach K.
Thank you, Eric. You're someone I just want to make sure you know that you do a lot for the community. You position a lot. You spur a lot of thoughts. I just want to tell you thank you. That's my only last thought is thank you for being you and being one of the many reasons why I love this community is people like you. So thank you.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you. And let's elevate this enablement thing, community.
Let's do it.